So maybe you've just recently picked up photography and you want to know some tips on how to get better. Well, today I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to improve your photography. So what's going on, everyday people? I'm Chadeveryday, and today I'm going to give you beginners 5 tips on how to get better at your photography. If you're new to this channel and would like to learn more about photography, videography, and the respective softwares to edit and do those things, go ahead and consider subscribing to this channel to stay up to date with the latest content. If you're excited about learning some new things that's going to help you step up your game as a beginner, go ahead and leave a like on today's video to show that excitement. Otherwise, let's hop into today's video. So step number 1, and I think this is the most important thing when you're doing photography: don't over edit. I see so many new photographers over editing because they get so excited that they've got this new editing program. Maybe it's a nice new camera, or you saw some photographer online and you really like their style. I think a lot of us get way too trigger happy in the beginning stages of our photography. We put too much into our editing process. One thing to always remember is that oftentimes less is more. You can see from these examples I am extremely over editing this first image. But the sad truth is that a lot of people actually put this much editing into their photos. But what you actually want to do is do a little bit less editing, make it a little bit more subtle until you kind of learn the tricks of the trade. Once you start developing your own unique style, then you can start applying more to the edit when you know more about the key features inside of your editing software. I have a few videos on Lightroom editing and Photoshop editing and plan to do a lot more in the future. So if you want to learn more about editing processes, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Tip number 2, you want to think about your shot. Think about things like the lighting, the composition, and the interestingness of the photo. If your photo's not going to be interesting for other people to look at, then why are you even taking it? You know, think of some more creative ways that you can take this shot. Don't just point your camera and shoot at something, because that's what novices do. If you want to be classified as a photographer and take better photos, you've really got to put a lot of thought and creative effort towards making your photos better. You can see from these examples that the first few photos I show with the whole lemonade setup, it's really not that interesting. It's not good. The lighting is terrible, the framing and composition is awful, and the overall images, I would never use these. However, if you look at some of the food photos, they're a lot more interesting. You can see that I'm working with some cool angles, the lighting's a heck of a lot better, and the overall framing and composition looks good. So always think about the shot before you just go and just start snapping a bunch of photos. Tip number 3, use what you got. If you don't have all the nicest gear and things available to you, consider what options you can do to improve the quality of your photos. Let's say you have a scene that's not as interesting like this one, or it would be more interesting if you did something like a panorama. I also happen to have a video tutorial on how to do panoramas. But if you want to include more in a scene and you don't have a wide angle lens that can see everything, you could shoot for a panorama. All you have to do is shoot, say, 5 to 7 images, maybe even just 3, to pan around the shot and get more of that scene to make the photo look more interesting. And if shooting and editing a panorama with a DSLR and an editing program like Adobe Lightroom seems challenging for you, if you've got an iPhone or any kind of new modern smartphone, most of those have panorama modes. Tip number 4, always have fun with your photos and be you. Don't try to be like everybody else and edit like them or shoot photos like them. It's good to have influencers that make you excited to go and take photos, but you should always be shooting for your own unique creative visions. You know, at the end of all of my videos, I always say, create something new today. And I do that because I want to inspire you to go out and make something. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be creating something amazing every day, but as long as you're always practicing and doing better things to uplift yourself, that's great. You're never truly going to learn your styles and what you like and what's going to work unless you're actually out there putting it out there. I've shown some pretty poor examples of my really bad photographs in this video, and that's not even the worst of the stuff that I've ever shot. But I never got the really good photos by just thinking about it and being like, hey, this is going to work. No, it took a lot of years of hard work and dedicated practice to get to that point. Which brings me on to tip number 5, which I kind of already talked about, and that's to shoot often. The best way to get better at taking pictures is to go out and do it every single day. If you can't do it every day, then just try to do it every other day. But the point is to always be practicing, because you're never going to get better if you don't put in the time and effort. It's the same with anything else in life. Do you think the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl because they were the best team and it just happened that way? No, they put in work and they practiced every single day, as did all the other teams. But it's always clear with using this sports analogy of which team practices the hardest and wants it the most. It's the ones that end up winning. And if you want to win at photography, you're going to have to put in that time and that work. And you should also enjoy it. It shouldn't feel like a chore to go out and shoot photographs and do the things that you love to do if you truly feel passionate about it. So I hope these 5 tips will help you to step up your photography game. You know, a lot of these tips are even good for non-beginners in photography, because a lot of times us that have been in the game for a very long time, we tend to forget the basics and overlook those for all these other things. So if you're ever looking for a little bit of creative inspiration with photography, just go out and shoot. Try new things, experiment, have some trials, have some errors, because we always learn from our mistakes. And honestly, in some cases, some of the photos of mine that I thought were mistakes ended up being my best pieces and exist in my portfolio today. But I hope you guys learned something today, and if you did, be sure to go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with the latest content, and as always, be sure to create something new today.